We all have something we grew up with. In this case, a lot of us grew up with video games. So many nostalgic games everywhere, some which even cameoed in the movie Wreck-It Ralph. And I'm going to talk about video games that I grew up with. Remember, we all have different games we grew up with. So as much as I love Banjo-Kazooie, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and Sonic the Hedgehog, I didn't grow up with them. And I know just because a game has no nostalgia and it doesn't mean it's a bad game, but I'd still like to talk about how much nostalgia they bring, not how much I adore them. And no crossover games, so I'm not going to talk about Kingdom Hearts or Smash Brothers, so let's begin the list. Frogger, he's back. Many people say the original Frogger is more nostalgic than this game. I find this game to be more nostalgic. Instead of getting all 5 of your frogs across the pond, you have to seek out all 5 frogs in the level. The music is downright amazing, and there are so many different levels to explore. The multiplayer is also fascinating because it's like a race where you have to get 3 flags before your opponent does. This was my first experience where there are 2 people playing at the same time. It's just downright memorable. The only reason it's not higher on the list is because I didn't play the single player that much as a kid. I mostly played multiplayer, and I didn't even unlock any new levels until my childhood was over. I still have very good memories of this game despite that. Rumble Racing barely missed my underrated games list. The reason it wasn't on my list is because I actually find hated games to be more underrated than games no one knows about. It has some pretty neat power-ups, such as being able to set your engine on fire to go faster, hitting enemies with your windshield, and certain other powers. Not to mention the announcer says some pretty humorous lines every so often.
If you turn on the left side of the plane, you will see the Grand Canyon.
The only reason it's not higher on the list is because I haven't unlocked the other levels, except for one, which I had just unlocked during the creation of this video. I have no idea why I haven't unlocked the other levels. Either way, this game really brings back some nostalgic memories. When I was a kid, I was a huge fan of SpongeBob. 10 years later, I'm still a huge fan of SpongeBob. Yes, I said it. I still like SpongeBob. Which brings us to this game. What was once a very unknown game to the Countdown community is now pretty well known around the Countdown community, which is probably because of Animal Guy 001. This game shows a lot of references to the classic episodes. Your goal is to collect golden spatulas, which references the Neptune Spatula episode. There are references to Rock Bottom, Club SpongeBob, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4, Sleepy Time, Pre-Hibernation Week, Texas, Sponge Gun on Duty.
Hey, that is my act!
Oh, sorry about that. The game gives you the ability to play as SpongeBob, Sandy, and Patrick. They all have their own unique abilities. SpongeBob can sneak, do bubble bashes to launch into the air, and once he gets some certain upgrades, shoot a bowling ball-shaped bubble and shoot an awesome cruise launcher. Patrick's ability allows him to pick up and throw certain items to activate certain switches. Sandy has the ability to lasso enemies from a distance, and she's pretty much the queen of long jumps, since she can use her lasso to swing from swing hooks and glide over long gaps. If you're a big fan of 3D platformers and of SpongeBob, play this game. Okay, you're probably getting tired of me talking about Crash Bandicoot: The Wrath of Cortex. I've talked about it to death in my recent top 10s, especially when it comes to music countdowns, since I used songs from this game in 5 of them. But I just can't help it. This game is downright nostalgia at its finest in the world of Crash Bandicoot. The bosses are unique, and the challenge of getting the gems and relics will really put you to the test. The gems are obtained by breaking all the crates, and the relics are obtained by beating the level in a certain time using crates to freeze the time. And there are also a lot of vehicles, like the plane, hummingbird, Coco's spaceship, scooter, snowboard, the jeep, minecart, sphere, that one train car thingy, robot suit, and submarine. There are also all sorts of environments, like jungles, castles, ice levels, factories, space stations, and plenty of other levels. And even though every single level has different music, and no 2 levels have the same music in them besides the bonus section music, most of the music is still downright memorable. Though there's one teeny tiny problem I have with the game. The loading screens! Still, great game nonetheless. I just wish some newer Crash Bandicoot games were good. If you're the developer of the Crash Bandicoot series and you're watching this, bring back everything we loved about Crash Bandicoot. How could I make a top 10 most nostalgic games without the first game I ever played? PacMan. What can I say about it without telling you it's already been said for the past 33 years? Of course, we all know how PacMan has to eat all the dots while avoiding the ghosts and getting the blinking dots to turn all ghosts blue so he can eat them and send them back to where they came from. The reason it's not higher is because it isn't as well developed as some of the later games, but that's because it's one of the first games ever. I know I criticized Game & Watch for also being too outdated, but at least PacMan didn't limit you to only be in 3 spots. PacMan is just downright memorable. Every Mario fan has something that introduced them to Mario. Some were introduced to him by Super Mario World. Some were introduced to him by Super Mario Brothers. Me? I was introduced to him by Super Mario Advance. I remember first playing the demo version of this game at the store. I got really attached to it and really wanted to have a copy of this game for myself. It may not play like the traditional Mario platformer, but it's still very nostalgic to me. Instead of stomping enemies, you jump on them and throw them at other enemies and pull items out of the ground. The thing that keeps it from being higher is, like I said earlier, it doesn't play like a traditional Mario game. In fact, it originally wasn't a Mario game. It's a remake of Super Mario Bros. 2, which used to be Doki Doki Panic. But that does at least give me the chance to include another Mario game on the list. But before we get there, I'm going to talk about the next game on the list. Yes, I know Tigger's Honey Hunt is a kid's game, but come on! I still don't hate it. One thing that helps me remember the game the most is the nostalgia. It has very nostalgic music, and some cutscenes are actually from the movie The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and some are even from Tigger's Big Movie. The object of the game is to get to the end of every level while collecting enough honey pots for Pooh's party. The game's kind of easy, especially the mini-games. I mean, the last level is just a mere game of rock, paper, scissors with nothing special to it. But I still love the memorability to this game. Now back to the Mario game I was talking about. That game is...
Hello!
No! That game's good, but there's one problem. I didn't grow up with that game! Oh gosh, I can't imagine how many people I must have ticked off with that comment. Heck, I couldn't even afford an N64 back in the days, and by the time I could, they weren't as common anymore. Instead, the number 3 entry is Super Mario World. This game is a nostalgic symbol to a lot of Mario fans. We all know about this game. One of the first Mario games to include a save feature, and it introduces one of the coolest abilities in Mario history, the King. It also introduced Yoshi, who was really awesome as a character. Not only can he eat enemies, but if he eats a certain color of Koopa shell, he gains certain abilities. Red shells let him breathe fire, blue shells allow him to fly, and yellow shells let him completely own the enemies whenever he lands. The Koopalings are also defeated in different ways, though some Koopalings are just a harder version of others. I don't know why, but for some reason, the pillars that crush you used to scare the heck out of me when I was a kid. The overworld map is pretty awesome too, since if you find a secret door to a level, you can access secret levels. Know you're having trouble with strange outline blocks? No need to worry! Find the Switch Palace and hit the switch to activate the blocks. Some even give you certain power-ups. I only played the Game Boy Advance version, where you have to find all the goals in the game to get the slightly different dinosaur landing instead of beating all the special stages. You may be disappointed because you did all that work just to be warped to Yoshi's Island, but to me, the closest thing to that would have to be that message made out of coins at the end of the last special level. Besides, the special levels are fun anyways. If you beat a castle or fortress, you cannot re-access them until after you beat Bowser, who by the way used to give me huge problems trying to beat him. Still a good game. Before all you Gen 1ers whine at me for putting a Pokemon game that's not Generation 1 on the list, please listen. This was the first Pokemon game I played. He was a sweet introduction to Pokemon for me. I remember first getting Trico as my starter and catching Poochyena, the first Pokemon I ever caught. Don't hate me for saying this, but this game also has in my mind the best and most memorable music in Pokemon. I could go on and on about this, but I plan on doing that in a later video. Some of you might criticize me saying, blah blah blah, you're only putting this on the list to rip off Eteonable 2. You didn't really grow up with this game. And if you want proof that I grew up with this game, then watch my 15 favorite Pokemon list. I clearly stated in the Kyogre section that I grew up with Kyogre, meaning I have to have grown up with Generation 3. Check the date too. That video was made a year before Eteonable 2 made his Nostalgic Games list. Heck, I made it 4 months before I even know he even existed. Still think I'm lying? Then face Kyogre's Hydro Pump. Anyways, if I were to arrange all 10 of these games from least favorite to most favorite, this would definitely be my most favorite out of the 10. But wait, if it's my favorite out of the 10, then why isn't it number 1? Well, I'm going to look at the other games before we get to the number 1 most nostalgic game for me. Number 10, Frogger He's Back. Number 9, why haven't you played this game yet? Number 8, SpongeBob nostalgia at its max in a video game. Number 7, I talk about this game a lot. Number 6, PacMan. Number 5, Super Mario Advance. Number 4, Tigger's Honey Hunt. Number 3, Super Mario World. Number 2, yes, I grew up with this game, so shut up! That's right, it's Yoshi's Island. The Game Boy Advance version, not the Super Nintendo version. The version I actually played. This game, this nostalgic masterpiece, has always been my most nostalgic game ever. And it still holds up as one of my favorite games of all time. I remember when I first got this game for Christmas, and I started playing it, and I instantly got drawn into the game. Pretty much everything is memorable about this game. I can remember like 99% of it. The memorable soundtrack and levels, all the wacky abilities, classic enemies, unique boss battles, and that ending was downright amazing. Giant Baby Bowser was also the first final boss I had ever beaten. I am not kidding you. I already loved Yoshi in Super Mario World, but this game made me love him even more. I also remember when I got 100% in every level, and I was still a kid at that time. I also played through this game a lot of times, 100%, a lot of them still being when I was a kid, because I was that drawn into the game. And also, the game is so nostalgic that I literally did my first Let's Play on this game for the purpose of nostalgia. These factors make this my number 1 most nostalgic game of all time.
Now put that thing back where it came from, or so help me!